As we wrap up our section on concepts, I want to start with a disclaimer. Each of the videos are meant to be lighter, to clarify our themes, and each of the videos can still hit us hard depending on our experiences, our goals, and where we're currently at. The topic of this video covers how some people are viewed and treated as less than a whole person, and I ask to watch this when you're in a good place to reflect on this difficult topic. We'll wrap up our fourth section. In this section, we've tackled 4 difficult concepts. We discussed how progress looks different whether viewing it from how we've improved from the past or are short of an unrealized future. We discussed how there's so many ways to earn that extra pay, promotion, or just have our ideas heard, and that not every valid way of earning is usually accounted for. We hit on multiple truths on how situations can be very different and how it impacts each of us in a way that is real and factual. And then we touched on the social. Knowing in local government we get involved whether we like it or not, we decide to be intentional or fall back on tradition, to be equitable or not. We've one more to go. To be on the same page, although humanity and personhood can be interchangeable in everyday conversations, for this video we distinguish humanity as being a member of the species Homo sapiens. Personhood, on the other hand, is to be worth moral consideration. As an example, someone with personhood but not humanity may be a beloved pet that we name, take care of, show affection for. We even have laws against animal cruelty and neglect. On the flip side, someone with humanity but maybe not as much personhood is a convicted criminal who may be in prison for weeks, months, years, even the rest of their lives without getting to walk among the public. For this video, we'll focus on personhood. What are some of the ways that we give to and take from others' personhood? In what ways do we show moral consideration or a lack thereof? There's visibility. Do certain individuals and populations get to be seen, heard? Do we talk about them? Do we reach out to them? Understanding too. Do we actually understand others' cultures, their viewpoints, perhaps their language, or are we just lost and confused, unable to grasp what they're all about? Benefits? Pretty straightforward of what nice things we provide in our services to some and maybe not others. Same too with restrictions. Do we disallow people practicing their faith or wearing their hair in a natural way or anything else that limits them, limits who they're about? Who gets priority? Not every service can be provided to everyone at the same time. Who gets it first? Last? Who do we protect? How do we protect them? From crime to hazards, from potholes to uneven sidewalks? And then there's value. How much does a member of the public's words count at a public hearing? Does it matter who they are? Where they are? If so, in what ways? This list is not everything. It's a start to think about the ways people get to be considered, first, second, or not at all. During the theme of normal, back at the start of our second section, I asked us to put aside bad intent and think about how people get the short end of the stick because of unintentional actions. What about when it is intentional? Well, that's a good question and one we're still grappling with. I will say we are completely kidding ourselves if we act like we're past racism, sexism, religious intolerance, ableism, classism, ageism, and more. If we think that the real problem is somehow a different region, other communities, different professions, that's too easy and convenient to be believed. Because so many of the hardships inflicted on others are because of knowing, intentional, malicious decisions and actions, and local governments are not in any way immune from this, not in the past, present, or future. And a lot of it is still acceptable, openly and publicly. It is not controversial to rag on the homeless. It is easy to let some senior leaders be just who they are, traditional, old-fashioned, and treat people however they want because of their tenure, their experience, or their authority. Every time there's a significant international incident that the media focuses on, some demographic group gets vilified, gets to be the scapegoat for the month, season, or year. For our purpose of this series, the ask is not to solve prejudice and bigotry. That's a tall order. The ask is to recognize that bad intent exists and is deeply rooted and prevalent in systems, institutions, and with people. And when someone comes forward to point it out, to call it out, to not punish or abandon them because chances are they're right. But if we have good intent, we're off the hook, right? Well, no. It certainly helps, and there are still ways to take away people's personhood, even if we meant to be kind. When we try to coddle certain groups as hapless victims, when we stereotype them even if that stereotype is positive in our mind, when we act different and are cautious or artificially pleasant just because someone belongs to a certain demographic group, that is not the way to make them feel like they belong. I am a good person is not sufficient to ensure people are allowed to be their whole, full selves. It is seeing people, hearing them, understanding them, letting them dictate situations and relationships on their terms, not ours. It is not using someone of a minority group and our friendship with them as a shield from any critiques and judgment. If we truly have good intent, we'll follow that up with the effort and time to do it right. To be given personhood empowers us in big and small ways, in ways we fully recognize and ways that are subtle. On the flip side, having our personhood taken away, whether by government institutions, popular media, even a stranger across the street harms, in big and small ways. This is where so often people who are marginalized can express things like violence, harm, pain, as it's a terrible thing to only be considered a fraction of a person, while others are seen as a whole. It is here where a lot of the anger and frustration can be found, and why asking people to be calm or tactful, or to just go about their complaints in a nicer way, falls so flat, as that too takes their personhood away that much more. To help us navigate conversations surrounding personhood, we wrap up with a few fundamental questions. What are the most basic rights and privileges that all deserve, no matter what? What is unacceptable, disallowed even for the most favored among us? What earns and takes away from personhood? Can we be specific with our answers, to where anyone can understand, to not just give them ambiguous generalizations? Can we justify our answers? Can we be flexible to valid critiques, or stand firm against pressures and threats? Ultimately, where can we do better to recognize people's personhood and humanity? These are not easy questions to answer, and these are the questions we have to ask. For our optional exercise, we apply the fundamental questions to our respective organizations, and we follow it up by one more. Are we content? Are we satisfied with the answers? Yes or no? And if we want to go advanced, we specialize. Equity is learning how to ensure policies, systems, structures, and so on meet different people's needs. We can choose to specialize in specific demographic groups to learn enough to competently serve them, knowing that none of us can be experts about every group. However, each of us can pick and choose who to learn more about, and together create a greater whole and act. Once again, going full circle, we've covered how DEI is comprehensive, complex, and we come across terms that take extra thought and consideration to figure out. We know now to consider how we and others perceive progress and earning. We've wrapped our heads around varying truths. We know to intentionally engage with the social, and now we aim to recognize everyone's humanity and personhood. Up next, our section on preparation of getting ready to take action, starting with outcomes.